Have you ever pondered why tragedies strike virtuous individuals? Why do decent people endure hardship while evildoers thrive? And why does God often seem distant in our most desperate times? This age-old query finds its answers in the Scripture, which takes us on a deep exploration of faith and righteousness. In the dry region of Uz, there was a man named Job, whose tale is often cited as the ultimate trial of faith. Job was not of royal or prophetic status. He was merely a devout and virtuous man. His devotion to God was so profound that he consistently avoided evil. He was regarded as the most honorable and sincere person on earth. Beyond his spiritual devotion, Job was a man of significant wealth. He owned vast expanses of land, teeming with livestock, and employed a multitude of servants. Recognized as the wealthiest man in the East, he was unmatched by any. However, his most cherished possessions were his family members, 10 children, 7 sons, and 3 daughters, who all shared joyful celebrations and the bounties bestowed upon them by God. Nevertheless, despite his prosperity, Job experienced restless nights. Each day, before dawn could break the darkness, he would rise to engage in fervent prayer. He painstakingly offered sacrifices for each of his children, haunted by the fear that any of them might have secretly sinned against God. Job was acutely aware of the precarious nature of life's blessings. Thus, he dutifully made sacrifices every day, not from fear, but from a profound love for God and his family. At that exact moment, a celestial observer set his sights on Job from above, and the tranquil world Job knew was on the brink of unraveling. The skies parted, revealing a divine tribunal. The sons of God, radiant and mighty, convened before the divine throne, observers of the universe's expanse. Amidst these luminous beings, a darker figure moved confidently: Satan, the perpetual wanderer and challenger, the one who rests not. The Almighty's voice boomed with unparalleled force, questioning him, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered, "I have been traversing the earth, walking back and forth across it." His journey had indeed shown him much: empires rising and crumbling, cities flourishing before succumbing to ruin. He had observed the faltering of hearts, the corruption of souls for mere riches, and the downfall of the upright. Yet there was one individual who remained steadfast. The Lord acknowledged this fact, affirming with assurance, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is none like him on the earth, a man of complete integrity who reveres God and avoids evil." However, Satan quickly countered, "Is Job's reverence for God without self-interest? You have shielded him and lavished blessings upon him. You've encircled him with a protective barrier, covering his household, his kin, and his fortune. His every endeavor flourishes, from his livestock to his servants. Is it any wonder he remains loyal? Yet strip him of his possessions, obliterate his wealth, take his children, plunge him into misery, and watch how he denounces you openly." The stakes were established, and the Lord declared resolutely, "All that he possesses is under your power. However, you must spare his life." A silent murmur echoed across the divine gathering. The challenger had received his permission. Immediately, Satan departed. The path was set. Job's destiny was now irrevocably linked to an unprecedented test of his faith. On the following day, tranquility seemed to reign at Job's residence. His children were joyously assembled for a feast, laughing and sharing tales over bread and wine. In the fields, oxen diligently tilled the ground, donkeys munched on grass, and servants oversaw the bustling activity. All seemed well. Then, abruptly, calamity struck. A servant, his face stricken with fear, burst into Job's home, gasping for air. With a shaky voice, he delivered the dire news: "Master, the Sabians have launched an attack." They've seized your oxen and donkeys, and the servants were slain by the sword. I am the sole survivor to tell you this." Job felt a cold dread. Before he could grasp the full extent of this disaster, another servant rushed in, equally distressed, exclaiming, "Master, fire has descended from heaven. It's a blaze of destruction. It has devoured your sheep and the shepherds. Nothing has been spared. I alone have survived to inform you." Job struggled to catch his breath. Was this fire from the sky a divine judgment, a symbol of something greater? Before he could ponder further, another messenger arrived, almost tripping over in his haste, his expression one of sheer desperation. "Sir, the Chaldeans formed 3 groups and attacked. They have taken your camels and slain all the servants by the sword. I alone have survived to report this to you." Job felt as if the earth itself was giving way under him. His entire wealth, his legacy, was being obliterated in moments. Yet an even graver message was about to be delivered. A 4th messenger appeared, his expression so grave he didn't need to speak. "Sir, your children—" Job gripped his chair, his heart thundering with dread. "They were at your eldest son's home, feasting and drinking." Suddenly, a powerful wind swept in from the desert, striking the house from all directions, causing it to collapse. "They are all gone. I'm the only survivor to bring you this news." The world around Job seemed to halt. Engulfed by a profound grief, he plunged into a darkness that felt more profound than death itself. In just moments, he had lost everything, his possessions, his entire family. Yet Job's response was not to lament or to denounce his fate or the divine. Instead, he stood slowly, his movements heavy with sorrow. With shaking hands, he tore his robe, a traditional sign of mourning. Then, solemnly, he shaved his head with a knife, letting his hair fall to the ground, an act of deep mourning and submission. Acknowledging the totality of his loss, he prostrated himself onto the earth, burying his face in the dirt, and worshipped. Amidst the silence, broken only by his grief-stricken voice, Job proclaimed, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return." He continued, "The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." In this moment, Job's faith was both tested and demonstrated profoundly. He faced the complete stripping away of every earthly attachment, yet instead of turning away in anger or bitterness, he embraced his faith more tightly. He chose to worship, to recognize that everything he had was a blessing, temporary and bestowed, not a permanent entitlement. This surrender, this unwavering faith amidst unparalleled loss, marked Job's ultimate victory. His faith, rather than withering under the weight of his trials, grew even stronger. The essence of true Christian belief lies in unwavering faith in God, which sustains you even during the darkest times. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, tells the story of 2 homes, one constructed on solid rock, the other on unstable sand. When storms struck, only the home on the rock stood firm. Despite his suffering, Job continued to praise God and passed the devil's test, because his faith was rooted in God's character, not just in his blessings. Yet the devil was not ready to accept his loss. As time went on, the skies parted once more. The celestial court reconvened, and the devil reappeared among the divine assembly. Observing his arrival, God spoke with commanding authority. "From where do you come?" With a cunning grin and a bow, as if harboring a sinister secret, the devil replied, "From wandering over the earth and walking back and forth on it." God watched him closely, aware of his malicious intentions. The devil had tried to corrupt Job and had failed. The most virtuous man had endured his first challenge without faltering. God then posed a question that undercut his adversary. "Have you seen my servant Job? Even after all you've stripped from him, he still upholds his integrity. There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and avoids evil. You provoked me against him to destroy him for no reason, yet he stands firm." This declaration hit the adversary hard. Job had withstood the initial test, a disgrace for the devil, but he was not deterred. With eyes filled with malice, he advanced, proclaiming, "A man will do anything to save his life." Displeased, God responded, "A person will surrender all he owns for his survival." The devil smirked, sensing vulnerability. "But reach out and strike his flesh and bones, and he will surely curse you to your face." The celestial beings remained silent as the gauntlet was thrown, yet God's gaze did not waver. He knew Job's heart. "He is in your power," God declared, "but spare his life." Immediately, Satan unleashed his wrath. There were no possessions left to destroy, no more children to be taken. His next target was Job's very health. Within hours, Job was afflicted with a severe illness. His once healthy and vibrant skin became a canvas of oozing, painful sores, covering him from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. Agony enveloped him like a cloak of pain. A fever ravaged his body, his skin flaked away in pieces, and the incessant itching felt like flames scorching his flesh. Every movement brought unbearable pain. Sleep eluded him, replaced by relentless torment. All he could do was sit amidst the dust and ashes, a broken, unrecognizable figure. Job reached for a shard of pottery, using it to scrape his skin, each stroke bringing intense pain. As days turned into more, the once esteemed man had diminished to a mere shadow of himself. Word of his plight spread far. His former dignity had all but disappeared. He was no longer known as the greatest man in the East, but now as a figure ravaged by disease and the brink of death. Abandoned by all who knew him, isolation became his only companion. However, his wife stayed by his side. She had witnessed the loss of their wealth, the burial of their children, and now watched as her husband deteriorated into what seemed less than human. Overwhelmed with sorrow, she reached her breaking point. With tears streaming down her face and her voice shaking, she came to him and asked, "Can you still cling to your integrity? Curse God and die." This marked the ultimate test. Unable to provoke Job into cursing God directly, the adversary manipulated the despair of Job's wife. Job shut his eyes momentarily, recognizing her anguish, yet his faith remained unshaken. He responded calmly, "You speak as one who is unwise. Should we accept only the blessings from God and not the hardships?" This trial for Job extended beyond mere loss. It was a test to see if his faith could endure when stripped of everything. Job did not falter. He remained steadfast through the unyielding agony. News of Job's profound suffering spread rapidly throughout the region. 3 of his friends and advisors, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, were stunned by the reports. Dropping all they were doing, they united to visit Job, hoping to offer comfort, share in his sorrow, and grasp the magnitude of his ordeal. However, the sight that awaited them was beyond anything they had imagined. From afar, they noticed a figure amidst the ashes, a man seated on the ground, his body marred by sores, his skin ragged, his gaze hollow. As they approached, they struggled to recognize him. This figure bore little resemblance to the esteemed, wise, and prosperous Job they once knew. This man was but a shadow of his former self. Their hearts shattered at the sight. Overwhelmed by their grief, they cried out loudly, their wails so piercing that servants, travelers, and locals paused to listen. Consumed by their sorrow, they tore their clothes in mourning, a traditional expression of their anguish. Yet their grief demanded more. Merely crying was not sufficient. With shaky hands, they scooped up dust and cast it over their heads, symbolically bearing part of Job's suffering. Words failed them at that moment. What could one possibly say to a friend in such profound pain? What words could possibly bring comfort to someone who had lost everything? For a full week, they sat by Job in complete silence, neither speaking nor expecting him to speak. They realized that some sorrows are too deep for words, and sometimes the mere presence of friends is the most comforting response. While they believed their silence offered some solace, soon they would find themselves challenged even further as conversations eventually began. After 7 days and nights of profound silence, it was broken in the most heart-wrenching manner. Job finally spoke, but not to curse God or his friends. Instead, he cursed the day of his own birth. With a voice filled with despair and his eyes distant, he uttered a lament that seemed to echo through the heavens and the earth. "Let the day I was born be erased. May the moment I was conceived be wiped from memory." His friends watched in shock. These were words they had never expected to hear from him. The Job they once knew seemed to have vanished. His voice carried the weight of a man who saw no further reason to continue, a man who found no meaning in his existence. He didn't seek answers or demand justice. He wished he had never been born. His anguish was relentless, his torment unending. "Why didn't I perish at birth? Why did I not expire as I came from the womb? Had I died before seeing the world, I would be at peace now." He yearned to erase his very existence, to have never been born, yet he remained alive, trapped in a body racked with suffering, in a life devoid of purpose. Why is light given to those who suffer? Why is life extended to those who find no joy in it? Job's speech reflected the depths of a soul utterly crushed by affliction, yet death eluded him. God did not deliver him from his pain. With every sob his body shook. He ceased to eat, to sleep, to harbor any hope. "What I feared has come to pass. I have found no peace, no sense of security, no moment of tranquility, yet calamity found me." His friends watched him in stunned silence. The quiet that followed Job's heart-rending lament felt dense, almost tangible, yet it was soon pierced by Eliphaz the Temanite, the eldest among the trio. Unable to contain his bewilderment at his friend's profound suffering, Eliphaz looked intently at Job, a man he once revered as a mentor and a source of wisdom. Compelled to speak, he took a deep breath and began, "You have guided many. You've given strength to the weak. You lifted those who stumbled with your words. You upheld those who fell with your encouragement. And now, when adversity reaches you, you falter. Shouldn't your reverence for God give you confidence? Shouldn't the uprightness of your life be your hope?" His voice carried a mix of bewilderment and reproach, as if suggesting Job had lost sight of the very doctrines he once espoused. "Consider this, Job. When has a truly innocent person ever perished?" The other two friends silently nodded in agreement. Eliphaz's reasoning seemed straightforward. God is righteous. He chastises the wicked. If Job was enduring such trials, there must be a reason. The implications were subtle, yet cutting, not quite accusing, yet insinuating wrongdoing. He continued, "They are destroyed by the breath of God and vanish at the blast of his anger. Even the mightiest lion's roars dwindle. The fierce beast's growls weaken, its teeth are shattered, and the mighty lion perishes for lack of prey." There was a brief pause, and then Eliphaz's demeanor shifted. His expression clouded as he recalled what he believed was a divine revelation. How can a mortal be more righteous than God? Can any human be purer than their Maker? If God does not fully trust his own celestial beings and finds fault with his angels, how much more critical must he be of us, mere mortals? Eliphaz's words, though not a direct rebuke, spun a tight web of stern reasoning around Job. His implication was clear. Job must have committed some misdeed to warrant his suffering. perhaps an unseen arrogance or fault. Job, once a just man, now reduced to sitting in ashes, suggested a profound truth. No human stands faultless before God. Eliphaz's tone hardened, carrying a mixture of warning and skepticism. "Go on, cry out for help," he challenged. "But who will respond to you?" His voice was edged, confrontational. "To which of the holy ones will you turn now, Job? In your dire moments, whom do you seek?" He argued that suffering was not without reason or purpose, not merely an accident of fate. However, he softened slightly. "Were I in your place, Job, I would seek God." Eliphaz looked heavenward, as if to draw strength from the vastness above. "He performs wonders that are beyond understanding, countless miracles. He thwarts the crafty in their tracks, catches the wise in their own schemes, and overturns the plans of the wicked." Continuing, Eliphaz's voice took on a note of solemn advice. "Blessed is the man whom God corrects. Do not despise the chastening of the Almighty, for it is God who both inflicts wounds and binds them. He brings harm, yet he also heals. In 6 troubles he will rescue you, and in the 7th no harm will touch you. During famine he will save you from death. In battle he will shield you from the sword. You will be protected from slander, and when ruin approaches, you will be able to laugh. Fear not the beasts of the field, for they will be at peace with you." He folded his arms and stared directly at Job. "This is not merely my own view, Job. We have thoroughly investigated this. We've witnessed it ourselves." He then exhaled deeply and announced, "Listen and comprehend. This is for your benefit." The words lingered, the message unequivocal. If Job acknowledged his suffering as divine discipline, he would find renewal. Yet if he continued to lament, he would merely extend his suffering. The other 2 friends waited in silence. Job raised his eyes, his face smeared with dust, his eyes hollow from affliction. His agony defied simple human explanations and could not be rationalized by his friends' reasoning. With a heavy sigh and a voice filled with sorrow, he responded, "If only my grievances and anguish could be measured fairly, if placed on scales, you would see they outweigh the sands of the sea. That's why I speak hastily. The load I bear is too heavy." He paused, trying to suppress the pain that tinged his voice. "Oh, if only God would fulfill my desire. If only he would let me die to end this suffering. If God ended my life, it would bring me peace, for then I would at least know I have not disregarded his commandments." It was a chilling desire, not for relief or recovery, but for complete obliteration. Yet the agony remained. Death did not arrive, and his patience had depleted. "How much longer must I bear this? Do I possess the strength of stones? Is my skin made of metal? I have no strength left, not even enough to care for myself." Job lifted his head to meet his friend's eyes, a flash of anger visible. "One expects comfort from a friend when suffering," he said with a hint of bitterness. "Yet you have failed me. You witnessed my suffering, and instead of helping, you recoiled in fear. Did I ever ask for your help? Did I demand any of your riches? Did I beg for rescue from my oppressors?" A heavy silence fell over the group. Job sought not their possessions, but their empathy. Raising his voice and with a hollow look, he declared, "I would rather die than continue to live like this." Eliphaz had intended to offer solace, but his efforts only intensified Job's burden. Job refused to confess to misdeeds he hadn't committed. His ordeal was inexplicable, yet his faith stood firm. It was then that Bildad the Shuhite chose to intervene. His message was clear. God is just, and if Job's children had perished, it must have been due to their own faults. With a serious expression, he told Job, "Why do you keep speaking these empty words as if they were a fierce wind?" If you approached God with humility, earnestly sought his favor, and lived with integrity, surely he would have intervened to restore your fortunes. Bildad's attempt at encouragement was tinged with judgment. Though your beginnings were modest, your future can be vast. Return to God, look to the teachings of the ancients. They knew the truth. God never abandons the just or aids the wicked. The innocent do not perish prematurely. The malevolent reap their own destruction. By God's decree, they are undone. His reasoning was straightforward. If Job lived righteously, he would be redeemed. But if his suffering persisted, didn't it suggest he must recognize and rectify his wrongdoing? Job raised his weary eyes. Despite his friends' insistence that his troubles stemmed from personal sin, he understood that no one could fully vindicate themselves before God. Your points hold truth, yet how can one argue with God? He isn't like us to discuss matters directly. God is wise, mighty, and steadfast. He crafted the heavens by his own hands, and his marvels are countless. Even so, when he moves around me, I don't see him. His actions are beyond my grasp. Even were I blameless, I couldn't justify myself. My only recourse is to appeal to him. The world is under the control of the corrupt. The judges are sightless. If not God, then who permits this? I am already doomed by God. Why should I continue this struggle? At last, his voice shattered. My God, why do you treat me thus? What have I done to earn such torment? I no longer wish to live. My soul is tired of existence. Why create me only to let me endure such hardships? He stretched his hands towards the heavens, seeking answers, but was met only with the oppressive silence of the divine. If Eliphaz's words had cut like a wound and Bildad struck like a brutal blow, then Zophar was a dagger. Driven deep into Job's heart, Zophar the Naamathite regarded him with a severe look. For him the issue was clear. Job had transgressed and was now suffering the consequences. There was no mystery or room for discussion. Will no one respond to this endless talk? Job retorted sharply. Are you still going to argue that I am at fault? His eyes blazed with anger. To Zophar, Job was not a sufferer, but a fool, stubbornly denying his misdeeds. If only God would speak and expose the reality, Zophar said, leaning forward with a mocking smile, delivering his harshest advice yet. If you truly corrected your heart, if you sought out God and shunned evil, then surely you would be redeemed. His implication was clear. Job must humble himself, recognize God's fairness, and accept his plight. Yet Job was no longer restrained. His reply was infused not just with pain, but with intense anger. He rose, his expression hardened by the ordeals he endured. Do you think you hold the wisdom of God? He challenged, glaring at them with contempt. Have you become the mouthpiece of the Almighty? Do you really believe you alone grasp the truth? His patience exhausted, Job's restraint vanished. His friends had judged, blamed, and treated him as an obstinate sinner. But he knew his anguish was unfounded, his conduct had been righteous, and his devotion to God remained unshaken. Unable to find fairness among his peers, Job turned his plea directly to the divine. He raised his face to the sky, tears filling his eyes, and with a voice quaking with emotion, he implored the Almighty, My God, why do you treat me as if I am your foe? If there's something within me that condemns me, reveal it. If I have sinned, make it known. If I am guilty, why not forgive me and bring an end to my suffering? The words escaped his lips with the last of his strength. He couldn't grasp the reason for his pain. He saw no fairness, yet his faith in God persisted. Although shattered, his belief was unwavering. Resolutely, he professed, Even if he takes my life, I will maintain my trust in him. Suddenly, the calm air stirred, escalating into a fierce tempest. The voice of God boomed from the tumult. "Who is this that obscures my plans with ignorant words? Brace yourself like a warrior. I will interrogate you, and you must respond." Job, who had sought dialogue with God, now found himself in the overwhelming presence of the divine. "Where were you when I established the foundations of the earth? Inform me, if you comprehend. Who set its dimensions? You must know. Who laid down the surveying line across it?" Job struggled for breath. God was not justifying his afflictions. He was emphasizing Job's triviality. "Who confined the sea with gates when it surged forth at birth? Have you ever dictated the dawn or shown the daybreak its place?" Job's heart constricted. He realized that God owed no explanations. He is the creator. The universe operates at his command. For the first time, Job confronted a harsh reality. God's greatness is far beyond human understanding. Job had sought explanations, yet God provided a broader view. Confronted by the divine majesty, Job found himself utterly at a loss for words. God addressed him once more. "Will you still argue with the Almighty? Let him who rebukes God answer it." Inside, Job felt an immense burden crumble. He had no replies left, no arguments to make, nothing more to demand. The Lord pressed on. "Will you deny my justice to defend yourself? Will you condemn my verdict?" A cold realization swept through Job. He had indeed done exactly that. He had demanded explanations for his suffering. He had desired proof from God that he, Job, was blameless. But now he recognized that God's justice didn't need to be justified. God then detailed his creation with even more precision. He described the behemoth, a grand creature he crafted with bones as strong as metal and a power unmatched by any. He talked about Leviathan, a formidable sea creature breathing flames and whose eyes glinted like the dawn. These beings were beyond any challenge or conquest. If no one can stand against these beings I have fashioned, who then can stand against me? Overwhelmed, Job could no longer resist. He bowed deeply, his face touching the ground, and confessed with a quivering voice, "I understand that you can do everything, and no purpose of yours can be thwarted. Before, I knew of you only from what I had heard, but now I have seen you with my own eyes." His heart was entirely yielded. Previously, he had spoken without true knowledge. He had questioned without comprehending the enormity of God. God had not supplied explanations. He had revealed his presence, and that alone was sufficient. Job, having endured unimaginable losses, now found himself in possession of far more, not through explanations of his past sorrows, but through a profound encounter with the divine glory. In that moment, he sincerely repented amidst the dust and ashes. Yet, the narrative was not yet complete. God then addressed Job's friends, who had spoken inaccurately and without understanding throughout the ordeal. The Lord expressed his displeasure. "My wrath is kindled against you because you have not spoken truthfully about me, unlike my servant Job." Job, who had been the subject of suffering and cries for relief, was vindicated by God himself. His friends, who had levied accusations, now faced the prospect of divine judgment. God commanded them to offer sacrifices and make amends, but added a remarkable directive. "My servant Job will pray for you, and I will favor his prayers." Job, once scorned and judged by these men, was now appointed to intercede on their behalf. He prayed for those who had caused him pain with their harsh words, and as he did, a miraculous transformation occurred. God revitalized his life. He was blessed with twice as much as he had before. Those friends and relatives who had turned their backs on him now came to offer comfort and gifts. His herds were not only restored but also expanded significantly. However, the most splendid part was still unfolding. God graced him with 10 new children, including 7 sons and 3 daughters who were renowned for their beauty. Their names were symbolic of the restoration and blessings of this new phase of his life. Jamar, meaning radiant day, represented the freshness of dawn after a dark night. Kazia, suggestive of the scent of spices, embodied purity and joy, and Keren Hapuch, translating to horn of antimony, signified honor and beauty. As dawn broke over the land, the fields that had once been desolate now teemed with life. Job strolled among his expanded flocks and herds, his children by his side, marveling at the recovery he had never imagined possible. Yet, amidst this abundance, his greatest wealth was not in material possessions, nor even in his reconstituted family. His most profound treasure was his faith, now unshakably strong. He grasped what had previously eluded him, the vastness of God, transcending human comprehension. God's justice and love are not confined to earthly measures of wealth or adversity. He reigns supreme, his plans flawless, even beyond human understanding. Answers were no longer necessary. Having witnessed God's majesty firsthand sufficed for him. The man who once despaired at his plight now reveled in a life richly blessed. As years rolled on, Job lived another 140 years, witnessing the growth of his family through generations. He departed this world at an old age, saturated with life and at peace. Job's narrative transformed from a tale of anguish to one of profound redemption. He never got the explanations he once sought. The divine debates, the reasons for his trials, remained undisclosed. Instead, Job received something infinitely superior, an encounter with the divine. God unveiled the cosmos to him, the grandeur of creation and man's modest place within it. At that pivotal moment, Job realized he had known of God through hearsay, but now he saw him with his own eyes, and that revelation was his ultimate blessing. Now, I turn to you, the viewer. Can you trust in God even when His plans are inscrutable? Share your thoughts and personal stories of faith in the comments below. Thank you for tuning into our channel. If you found value in this video, please like and share it with those who might benefit from this message. Blessings to you and your loved ones. Amen.